Scott Erlin back here with Coach Schertz for part 3 of our 2014-15 men's basketball preview, and we're talking about the guards. Coach, obviously you talk about how every season is a new season, a new team, and it seems like this team is going to be probably the deepest group of guards you've ever had, and that group is obviously led by senior point guard Lorenzo Ross and junior, let's call him a combo guard, Tim Pierce. Just talk about those guys and what you expect from those two.
Well, I think, Lorenzo's had he's the one guy in our team that's probably, you would say, a proven guy. In the sense that he's played a lot of minutes, he's played a primary role on teams that have had success, and so Lorenzo's been the one guy that really, has had to kind of absorb, played 30 minutes a game and kind of knows all that goes into that. So he's had a really good off season. I think he's improved. He's done a better job. Each year he's gotten better at figuring out kind of that balance. We put him down. I sat him down. Midway through last year, and when we put a sheet of paper with Russell Westbrook on one end and John Stockton on the other, and then we put Lorenzo Ross in the middle, and so he's got to kind of find that balance. It's a hard thing to do as a player, because he can go and he's so fast and he's so strong, and he can kind of get a shot whenever he wants. Doesn't mean it's a good shot, but he can get a shot. And so to find that balance, doesn't need to be John Stockton, but he's also not Russell Westbrook. He's got to kind of find that balance between scoring and making other guys better. I think this year he's done the best job in the preseason that he ever has of finding that balance, of getting guys shots, of getting his own, and kind of contributing. Tim, and I expect Lorenzo to have a really good year. I think he's bought in defensively. I think hopefully he's going to be able to be. The thing with Lorenzo has been, over the 3 years, he's been all league all 3 years, but his consistency has been up and down in terms of, he'll have great stretches, and he has some stretches where he's not as good. I think this year, and his ability to play both ends, there's times where he's not as locked in defensively. So far in the preseason, knock on wood, he's been pretty consistent, and he's been able to perform at a high level on both ends, on a consistent basis. So that bodes well for him. Tim, I'm hoping it's kind of like it was for Chance, where if you look at Chance Jones a couple years ago in the postseason, he got, he was a bench guy who got thrust into a main role with some injuries, and he had a great postseason, and he really kind of used that momentum to really kind of push him into a great senior year last year. And so he came in 13-14, had a great year. Tim really had a terrific postseason when you look at what he did in the conference semis, the conference finals. I think he made 6 threes in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Tim really finished the year off on a high level. He's a remarkable talent. He can do everything. He's a guy that has to be more aggressive, and a guy that has to kind of, and I think at the end of last year, kind of find his niche. He's got to be more decisive. So hopefully, as a junior, 2 years experience, more confidence now because of what he was able to accomplish down the stretch last year, and some really, at the most important part of the year, he played his best. So hopefully that'll give him some confidence, coming in, and then, like you said, there's great depth back there. And a lot of evenness. I like to see some separation, but we have a good group of guys, most of whom played last year. The thing for them is going to be they're all in different roles, except for Lorenzo, really. If you take Lorenzo out and not only just our backcourt but our front court, we don't have another guy that averaged 20 minutes a game, has ever played 20 minutes a game in their career here. So you got a bunch of guys that. You look at Tim Pierce, you look at Luquan Choice, you look at Curtis Webb, you look at C.J. Wakely, and even Jarrell Simmons, because he's redshirting and coming in where we think he can impact it. Those guys, are going to have to be more disciplined. When you look at Tim and Luquan and C.J. and Webb, they played double-figure minutes somewhere between 11 and 19, but none of them were disciplined enough or consistent enough to play 25, 30 minutes a game. So can they make that transition, become more disciplined, become more consistent in their performance, so they can log more minutes and be on the floor more, because we're going to need them, some of them, to play obviously primary roles. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how that goes. Luquan is a guy that showed flashes last year. had a 34-point game at Newberry, had a couple 20-point games. He averaged, I think, 9 a game for us. He's our second leading returning scorer, made 61 threes, led us in three-point shooting last year as a freshman. He's a guy that I think, you know, can have a big year. You know, Curtis Webb is kind of a glue guy, and he does everything well. He's also our best, probably, perimeter defender. C.J. Wakely's been hurt. You know, broken foot 2 years ago. Last year, broken thumb. So he missed significant chunks of time. CJ's a good player. He's not had a chance to with injuries, to play enough minutes to really kind of show and get you know, where he's consistently performing at a high enough level. And then, you know, Jarrell's a guy who's kind of a wild card. You know, he's a proven guy from a scoring standpoint. He averaged, I think, 14.5 at Brevard as a sophomore. He was second in the league in three-point shooting. I think he shot 48% from three. He can score the ball. Obviously, his role here is going to be different than it was at Brevard. We just, you know, it's different systems, different philosophies. So he's done a good job working hard, adapting. We think he can impact us, but he's got to figure out kind of what we're doing, and that's going to be the key. Is, you know, for these guys is consistent performance and making sure they're disciplined in terms of what we're doing on both sides of the ball.
And then if you look at the scope of this team, the guards, let's say. Shooting seems like it's going to be a real strength of this team. You look at Laquan, hit 61 three-pointers as a freshman last year. Curtis Webb only shoots 26 threes last year. He makes 13 of them. Mm-hmm. And we've known that Jarrell Simmons has maybe the purest stroke on the team. Mm-hmm. What is that going to do for your team, opening up the offense in terms of just to have that much three-point shooting?
Yeah, I think this will be the best shooting team we had. You throw Tim in there, I think Tim made 43s and shot 42% from three as well. So, I mean, you got a group of guys there with Luquan, Tim, Jarrell, and then Webb that, you know, are really can shoot the ball from the perimeter. And I think, you know, what shooting does, it creates spacing. You know, as a coach, you can move pieces wherever you want to, but if you don't have shooting, you can't really stretch the floor. You can't create spacing. The hope is that with guys that can make shots, should create better spacing, give our bigs more room to operate, give our guards more room to drive because you can't help over as much. This has a chance to be the best perimeter shooting team as a group we've had here. And, you know, but obviously they got to come out and do it. But I think that's going to be probably, I think this year's team should shoot the ball better than last year's team did overall. I think you look at it, Chance was a guy that made some threes last year. That wasn't the best thing he did. But outside of him, all of our main shooters returned. And like you said, Jarrell's a guy that I think was second as a sophomore behind Chandler Hash, and, you know, made 60-some threes and shot 48% from three. So he's a guy that's an elite shooter as well. So certainly we're going to be a little bit different because, you know, we've been over the last 6 years, you know, we've had at least one and a lot of years, two first-team all-league big men. And, you know, I know we're covering that in another segment, but, you know, this year may be a little bit different. We're going to have to tweak some things and run some different things to take advantage of what our strengths are. And so, not that you're going to just throw what we've done before out the window, but just maybe a little bit different in how we do some things and things we run to try to take advantage of our strengths. And one of our strengths, I do think, will be our ability to shoot the ball from the perimeter.
And obviously, we've known for a long time, if you can't play defense for you, you're not going to play, no matter how good of an offensive scorer. And this seems like a team, once again I said team, the guards seems like a group that could really guard at a high level just based entirely on their athleticism. We know how good of an athlete Curtis Webb is. He reminds me a lot of Justin Allen, better offensive player than Justin Allen was. You know, Lorenzo is a big physical guy. Tim is an athletic, big guy. Luquan, big guy, physical guy, body. How good of if this unit reaches its potential, how good defensively can they be on the perimeter?
Well, I hope really good. You know, we have the tools. You know, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, athletically, lengthwise, we have the tools to be a big-time defensive team. You know, now it comes down to the mindset and the intangibles. You know, obviously, and you know, do we have that toughness, that nastiness that some teams in the past have had? You know, I think the last 6 years led the league in field goal percentage defense, and 5 of the 6 years been the top 10 in the country. And last year's team was really, really disciplined defensively. They very rarely screwed up. pick and roll coverage, or how we were, if we're piggybacking a down screen, or we were gapping it, or how we guard different action. They very rarely mess that up. Can this year's team be disciplined enough to do the right things, to execute the defensive game plan? Like I said, I don't question anything athletically. We got size, we can move laterally, we have good length. I mean, all the things you would want to be good defensively. It just comes down to guys being able to kind of lock in, understand, execute the game plan, and take certain things away, and kind of through preparation be able to tweak things. And that was where teams in the past have done a really nice job of that. And hopefully this group, that's where to me the question mark's got to be answered is, do they have that nastiness? Do they have that toughness that like last year's group brought to the defensive side of the ball? When you watch our teams last year, they were really sound defensively, really disciplined defensively, and they were, most of our guys have that nastiness, that toughness about them on the floor. And these guys got in extended minutes now, to do that. They're going to have to kind of bring that to that edge, and they haven't, for the most part, they haven't proven they can do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing, can we get there?
With the obvious depth of your team being kind of in the guard play, how do you think that'll change, the way you play, the lineups you're putting on the floor?
Well, I mean, you have the ability, and we did some last year. Last year we obviously we had a great big with Vinny, but we actually only really dressed 4 bigs. If you look at it last year, we most of the year only dressed 11 players, and 4 of them were posts. So we played some 4-guard lineups. You look at guys like Luquan and Curtis Webb can slide up and play some 4. We can do some things where we have 4 guards on the floor at a time and try to take advantage, of their size and their speed and those things. And kind of depending on matchups, you can do that. I don't think this year we don't have and again, not jumping putting the cart before the horse, but we don't have a dominant big, but we may actually have more big depth than we had last year. But I think you'll see in the backcourt, probably the differences you'll see are small, slight things that maybe wouldn't be totally noticeable to the untrained eye, that we're doing some things different to try to take advantage of our perimeter scoring. We don't have that, definitive guy down the block that you say, DeMario Curry for 3 years, Vinny Bailey for 3 years, the Jake Troyleys, Desmond Johnsons, these All-Americans, first-team All-League guys, that you have these definitive guys down there. We have a good group, a committee, but our strength scoring-wise will probably be from the backcourt, which has been different than my first 6 years because we've always been led by a big in scoring. It doesn't mean that we couldn't, KP or one of those guys may step up and do that, but you'll see some small tweaks, maybe from a lineup standpoint, but certainly relative to what we run and kind of how we do some different things. Again, trying to take advantage of our ability to shoot the ball, maybe our ability to put guys in space and let guys go make plays, things like that we probably got to take advantage of that maybe previous teams didn't. We've had to do that every year. I mean, we were different. We had a couple years ago Cam and Wally. It was a different team than last year's team. We did some things different. We had Jake Troyley, who was a great shooting 4. We did some different things for him than we did. We had Vinny and KP, who were really big physical inside guys. This year we're different, so you got to adjust and kind of tweak things to take advantage of what you have, but always stay true to what you believe philosophically. We won't ever change that, but we'll always tweak and tinker to try to make things and take advantage of what we think our strengths are.
All right, Coach, that's part 3 of our 2014-15 men's basketball preview. We'll be back tomorrow with part 4.
Sounds great.